Good evening, and welcome to the Ames Courtroom of Austin Hall at Harvard Law School and tonight's discussion on communication and human development, the Freedom Connection. Is there something about the architecture of the mobile phone that biases it towards centralization of control? Or does the mobile network support open access to knowledge for people decentralized across the globe?
Everything is relative. That is to say, by comparison to what? By comparison to a system of broadcast and knowledge acquisition that requires a very high level of capitalization in order to even acquire the information about where the markets are, what the prices might be, or what the government is doing and how to disseminate it. Yes, the mobile phone is an enormously decentralizing creative device. If you, the classic stories of the fishermen calling to shore and finding out where to sell their fish, obviously that's a dimension of human development that is enabled by decentralizing certain kinds of knowledge. If you think of the videos from the Iranian reform movement, and you think of how central mobile phones with video capabilities were to capturing some of those images, then of course, if you think of SMS messaging pushing payment systems and that end up then getting rolled into M-Pesa as a model of mobile-based banking for unbanked people, all of these systems relative to the baseline of 6 years ago are enormously creative and enormously decentralizing of power. However, relative to what? If the relative to what is to say, responding in some senses to your very first question is, can we go home now and talk about something else? The answer is no, because when you compare that architecture to the architecture of the net itself, with the genuinely powerful devices at its edges, and the degree of flexibility and creativity and computational power and storage at its edges, then you see that there are certain things you can do with mobile phones and there are certain things you can't do with mobile phones. There are levels of creativity and engagement. If you talk about Brazilian software developers competing and participating as equals in the software services market by delivering free software-based billing systems to Pizza Hut in Texas, that's not something you can do over a mobile phone. That's something for which you need a much more powerful machine and a much more powerful and complex set of skills at its edges. If you look at the story Ethan Zuckerman was telling today at the workshop on their efforts with Ushahidi in Kenya to provide a mobile phone-based system for collaboration, the problem was not setting up the net-based system of distributed reporting. That's been done in lots of other places. The problem was interfacing it with the devices that were actually distributed in the population, which were the mobile phones. And the problem there was getting permission to connect it to the network of the mobile phones, getting the code. That was the critical question. So when you ask about is the architecture systematically centralized or decentralized, relative to the industrial information economy of the 20th century, decentralized. Relative to a networked society as we've seen it developing in the countries where the population was wealthy enough to get much more powerful devices running on non-proprietary networks with non-proprietary standards, weak. That strikes me as the direction in which we should be going, because that's the direction that actually distributes the ability to learn, to innovate, to be creative, to communicate with others in ways that nobody needs to give permission for.